She saw a door slightly open. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she pushed it open. What Olivia saw made her freeze. Inside the room were 6 young girls tied up and gagged. Their eyes were filled with fear. They looked like they had been there for days. Olivia, also known as Splashy, was a stunning young lady of 28. She was the kind of girl everyone admired. Olivia was a student at a prestigious Nigerian university, but her life was far from what you'd expect of a regular student. She lived in luxury, driving flashy cars, wearing designer clothes, and staying in a luxurious apartment. Her life seemed perfect, but few people knew her truth. Her parents were ordinary folks, neither rich nor poor. They worked hard to make sure Olivia could attend university. But Olivia didn't want an average life. She wanted more: fame, power, and riches beyond imagination. She wasn't content with her parents' modest support. She wanted to be seen as the queen of campus. Olivia's secret to her extravagant life was a wealthy politician she introduced to everyone as her father. This man was no father, he was her sugar daddy. He showered her with expensive gifts, money, and cars. He adored Olivia and would do anything for her. But even with all his riches, Olivia wasn't satisfied. Her hunger for more led her down a dark path. One evening, Olivia overheard some of her friends talking about their hookup business. These girls, who also lived lavishly, confessed that they earned money from meeting wealthy men. At first, Olivia was disgusted, but curiosity got the better of her. She listened quietly as they shared stories of glamorous dinners, private jets, and fat bank accounts. Olivia felt torn. She already had so much, but the stories of these girls tempted her. They seemed to be living an even more extravagant life. Olivia began to wonder, what harm could one try do? That's when her friends gave her the contact of a man named Chief. Chief was said to be one of the richest men in town. He loved young, beautiful women, and he paid well for their company. When Olivia reached out to him, he offered her an amount of money so large it left her speechless. Greed blinded her, and she quickly agreed. The night came. A black SUV pulled up in front of her apartment to pick her up. The driver was silent, and the journey was long. Olivia stared out the window, imagining the kind of mansion Chief would have. She felt excited, imagining the pictures she would take and the gifts she might receive. When the SUV stopped, Olivia couldn't believe her eyes. The mansion before her was breathtaking. The gates were golden, the driveway lined with exotic cars, and the house itself sparkled under the moonlight. It was like a palace. The driver escorted her to the door and left. Olivia stood there for a moment, admiring the beauty of the house. Then the door opened, and Chief appeared. He was a tall, middle-aged man dressed in a fine suit. "Welcome, my dear," he said with a smile. The inside of the mansion was even more stunning. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and expensive artworks filled the space. Chief told Olivia to feel free and explore while he made some arrangements. Olivia, always curious, decided to take a look around. As she moved through the house, she couldn't help but admire the luxury. One room had a pool table and bar, another had shelves filled with books. She wandered further, opening doors and peeking inside. Everything was perfect, but something didn't feel right. The house was eerily quiet. Olivia reached a hallway at the back of the mansion. At the end of it, she saw a door slightly open. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she pushed it open. What Olivia saw made her freeze. Inside the room were 6 young girls tied up and gagged. Their eyes were filled with fear. They looked like they had been there for days. One of the girls managed to whisper through her gag, "Run, run before it's too late." Olivia stepped back in shock. "What is this?" she whispered. The girl whispered again, "They are ritualists. We're all going to die. Run while you can." Olivia's legs trembled. She realized these girls were like her, hookup girls lured by promises of wealth. Now, they were prisoners, waiting to be sacrificed. Before Olivia could react, she heard footsteps approaching. She quickly hid behind a curtain in the corner of the room. Chief entered with 2 men. They looked at the girls, discussing their plans for the ritual. "Tonight, we'll complete the ceremony," Chief said coldly. Olivia's heart pounded. She realized she had walked into a trap. She needed to escape, but the men were still in the room. After a while, they left, locking the door behind them. Olivia waited for the footsteps to fade before stepping out of her hiding spot. She looked at the girls, who begged her with their eyes to help them. Olivia knew she couldn't save them all, but she could save herself. She crept back down the hallway, careful not to make a sound. But as she reached the main door, she bumped into one of the men. "What are you doing here?" he asked, suspicion in his voice. Olivia forced a smile. I got lost," she stammered. The man's eyes narrowed. "You've seen too much," he growled. Before he could grab her, Olivia kicked him in the shin and ran. The man shouted, and footsteps echoed behind her. Olivia ran through the mansion, her heart pounding. She reached the front door and flung it open. Outside, the compound was vast and surrounded by a high fence. Olivia sprinted toward the gate, hearing the men's angry shouts behind her. She climbed the gate, cutting her hands on the sharp edges, but she didn't care. Once outside, she ran to the nearest road and flagged down a passing car. The driver, an elderly man, saw her bleeding and terrified. He agreed to take her to safety without asking questions. Back at her apartment, Olivia locked the door and collapsed on the floor. She couldn't stop shaking. The events of the night replayed in her mind, haunting her. She realized how close she had come to death. Her greed and desire for more had almost cost her life. Olivia decided to change her ways. She cut ties with her sugar daddy and the hookup girls. She focused on her studies and started living a simple, honest life. But the memory of that night never left her. She could still see the faces of the girls in the room, still hear their desperate pleas. She knew she had been lucky to escape, but others hadn't been as fortunate. And that was a burden she carried forever. Later that week, news spread across campus like wildfire. Several girls had been declared missing. Posters with their pictures were plastered everywhere. Students gathered in groups, whispering and speculating about what could have happened. Some claimed it was kidnappers, others said the girls had run away. Olivia's heart sank every time she saw one of the missing posters. The faces on them were the same girls she had seen tied up in Chief's mansion. She already knew their fate, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. Every time she thought about going to the authorities, fear gripped her. She knew Chief was a powerful man with dangerous connections. If she spoke up, her life, and maybe even her family's, would be in danger. The memory of those cold, calculating eyes and the way he discussed the ritual haunted her. Olivia tried to move on, but the guilt weighed heavily on her. She avoided her friends, stopped going out, and barely spoke to anyone. The luxurious lifestyle she once adored now felt meaningless. Every designer bag, every expensive shoe reminded her of the cost of greed. At night, she dreamed of the girls' faces, their whispers begging her to run, their eyes filled with fear. She prayed for forgiveness, but the pain didn't go away. Olivia vowed never to let greed control her again. Though she didn't speak of what she saw, she carried the memory as a warning to herself and others. Olivia changed her life completely, focusing on her studies and staying far away from the allure of easy money. But no matter how much time passed, she couldn't forget. The missing girls became a permanent scar on her heart, a chilling reminder of how close she had come to losing her own life and how her silence cost others theirs.